Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Tim Gallagher. I'm the principal of Talladega County Central High School here in Talladega County, Alabama. Presenting with me is Miss Emily Nestor. She's the Technology Integration Specialist for Talladega County Schools. Today, we're going to walk you through how Talladega County Schools have mapped out a plan for our paths to PBL success. During the presentation, we invite you to add any questions that you might have to the chat. We'll do our best to answer these, but we'll try to hold off to the end unless we see something that just sticks out. Ms. Nestor is going to share with you a little bit about how Talladega County got started with the PBL and the STEM origination when it started several years ago. So I'm going to let Ms. Nestor take over.
Thank you, Dr. Gallagher. Like Dr. Gallagher said, my name is Emily Nestor. I have been very fortunate to be a part of Talladega County Schools since I first graduated college. So I have been here for 13 years and have been able to see our PBL journey and our STEAM initiative through from beginning to where we are now. We began our PBL journey back in 2008. During this time, we utilized the framework and planning guide that was created by the Buck Institute, which is now known as PBL Works. Schools oftentimes offered PBL planning days for teachers because the planning process was very cumbersome and it was very time consuming. It would sometimes take an entire day for a teacher to be able to plan one project for one prep, and it would yield a plan that was 10 plus pages long, not very user friendly, not very functional at all. However, we continued to remain true to the process and continued using that framework and planning guide. Our STEAM initiative began in 2016. And during this time, it was very easy to see that there was a natural integration between STEAM and PBL. However, STEAM was not an initial component of project-based learning, and that required some additional planning. This planning looked different at every school as various STEAM planning templates were being utilized across our district.
During the time that we were integrating PBL and STEM, we saw several challenges that came up. One challenge we found early on was that teachers viewed STEM as just another initiative, something else that the district was putting on them, rather than something that they were already doing through PBL. So this was a challenge that had to be addressed. Also, being a rural school system, most of our teachers at the majority of our schools have multiple preps. So as teachers were planning, we were giving teachers a planning day, an entire school day. They came away with one plan for one class, and the teachers were left saying like, well, what do I do with my other 4 classes or 3 classes? So like Ms. Nestor said, this was a really burdensome, cumbersome plan that we originally used. So the question came up, how can we infuse PBL and STEM into one planning process that's easy for teachers, and we can kind of expedite that and, let teachers get more than one in a day. All of those things were challenges that, had to be addressed.
The first step in creating this infusion was for us to look closely at the PBL gold standard design elements and teaching practices to determine which of these were truly essential to PBL and the planning process. These elements and practices can be seen to the graphics on the right. We knew that projects needed to continue to take the form of design challenges that offered authentic, rigorous learning experiences that were grounded in real-world application. We also wanted to continue to engage students in collaboration, problem solving, reflection, and persisting through challenges. Projects needed to offer a high level of active engagement, be student-driven, and yield a public product that could be presented by students to a wider audience than just those in their own classrooms. And of course, we wanted to remain true to our roots of technology integration and blended learning.
As you can see, what we had to do was look at the essential STEM elements that were important, important that we wanted to be put into the new plan. We knew the teachers were very familiar with the 4 C's. That was part of the original PBL plan from the Buck Institute: collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, communication. So that was something that we felt was pretty essential to keep. But we added the engineering design process when we moved into the STEM initiative, as well as, of course, the STEM tree: science, technology, engineering, and math, and computational thinking. So these were all areas that we knew we wanted to keep. These were all very important elements that needed to be put into the new map as we were creating this to make it easier for teachers.
After determining those essential PBL and STEAM elements, the next step was to marry them together into one cohesive design template. Through some conversations and strategic planning and a use of a lot of sticky notes, the hashtag Leading the Way Learning Map was born. We actually give credit to one of our high schools, Winterboro High School, because they were the ones who actually created the learning map for use at their own school. Miss Emily Harris, who presented in the main session, was the principal at the time. I was their technology integration coach, and she came to me one day and said, "We really have to change things." And I said, "I totally agree." She drew some sketches out on a piece of paper, put some sticky notes out on a table, and said, "Make it come alive." And so I took to the computer screen, went into Google Slides, and built our hashtag Leading the Way Learning Map. At that time, we called it the hashtag Exceptional Learning Map because that was our hashtag as a school. Once schools saw the success we were having with utilizing the learning map, it became a common practice for other schools to use the map also. And then from there, it turned into our district-wide planning document. And that is why we changed the name to the hashtag Leading the Way Learning Map.
As you can see, looking at the learning map, it hits all of the key components of PBL and STEM. It's grounded in the knowledge and understanding that everything's related to content, but also adds real world connections into the projects. A core competency is included in the map. And this is one I will say, of course, those 4 C's, going back to that, when the teachers sometimes have a problem with this, saying like, "No, I do all of these." And Ms. Nestor's great at explaining, like, yes, of course you do, but there's going to be one that we're really going to focus on all throughout this project, almost daily. So the teachers will pick one of those 4 competencies to focus on, as well as an area in the computational thinking domain that's going to be highlighted all throughout the project. And of course, you'll see some opportunities for inquiry, for critique, for revision and reflection built into the project. These are all key components of the map that you'll see throughout. These are all, parts of smaller activities that will build up to a bigger project.
Thanks to an excellent entry event, students not only get excited about the project, but they also know the reason for learning. And I think that as educators, we can all think back to a time when a student has asked us, why? Why are we learning this? Why are we doing this? And really focusing on that key content and knowledge and making sure to address the why, set that level of why we are learning during the entry event can help make that connection even more clear for students. Students also refer back to that driving question daily. The driving question really helps to guide the project. It is something that is very concise. It is very open-ended, which encourages diverse thinking. And again, like I mentioned, it is something that can be answered every single day. So every day students see that they are learning something that relates back to that driving question, that relates back to that content, that relates back to that why. STEAM activities are also planned and embedded throughout the project in order to provide inquiry opportunities. These opportunities not only engage learners in the engineering design process and STEAM, but it also allows them to explore a variety of methods for problem solving, creating, and collaborating together. Students then create that final product that is not only public, but is also a way to make their learning visible. These products offer a level of voice and choice that helps to engage learners even further. And it is also something that can be done as an individual and or group. Oftentimes with a project, there will be an individual component and a group component, or one or the other, and that is perfectly fine. It is just going back to what is the why and how are we going to have students to showcase their learning through this end product. So why a learning map? As you can see, the learning map not only marries PBL and STEAM together, but it truly guides thinking. It guides thinking for teachers during the planning process to ensure that rigorous, authentic experience for students. And it also guides students through the thinking process as we are ensuring that all of those essential elements and teaching practices are embedded. It also replaces that normal 10+ page project plan that we were so used to, and it puts a functional text in place. Oftentimes, we would print these maps out on half sheets of poster paper, and when we would walk into classrooms, teachers would actually have these maps posted on their walls. Students knew to refer to them, the teacher would refer to them, and they were living, breathing documents. It also adds some voice and choice for educators because they can color, draw, write, sketch note. And the best part to me is that there was no more taking an entire day to plan for one prep. Instead, we are able to produce a finished, cohesive, amazing PBL project in 2 hours and 20 minutes.
The most important component of a project is really the time spent planning. Abraham Lincoln once said, give me 6 hours to cut down a tree and I'll spend 4 hours sharpening the saw. And that's kind of the belief in, planning using this map. More often than not, our teachers are incorporating several standards into this one project. So time is really, or planning time is really essential to make this be most effective for students and teachers. In the planning sessions, every teacher is given a printed copy of the planning map, and they're also guided through the process. Ms. Nestor has trained some other DLPs is what we call them in our system, but on how to train teachers. But, teachers are always guided through this process, and you'll see some of the elements of that in just a moment. But throughout the process, they always see an overview of the element that they're working on. There's always a guided question for them to focus back to, as well as a timer. They're always, there's a certain amount of time that each component should take, and we move forward from there. But again, going back to originally where we had that one really long document that wasn't really user friendly, and it took all day to create one plan. Now we have teachers again with multiple plannings that can get 2 and 3 learning maps completed in an entire day. And I will say the beauty of this is no matter how many times a teacher has been through this process, being guided by somebody else, having that a person to guide them through it really helps the teachers not, open up their mind. I'll be honest, Ms. Nestor came to our school and worked with some of our teachers once, and I said, have you ever applied to be on Jeopardy? Because and we have teachers like that know so much about other things that they're able to bring stuff to the table. And we see teachers collaborating sometimes with like, hey, I want to do this part with you or something like that. So, it's really great to have the teachers planning together on this map. On the next few slides, you'll see some examples of the planning guide. You'll notice some information that includes an overview of the element that they're working on, some guiding questions to help keep the planning on track, and of course, a timer to help keep the process moving in a timely manner. As you can see, this planning guide helps keep the participants focused on the task at hand. The big arrow there always points to what they're working on. You know, every time we go to a slide, the arrow moves. So we always refer back to that. The timer is really important because, you know, sometimes it is easy to get wrapped up in one area, you know, in one area of this, but the timer really helps keeps us focused and keeps us moving. And I'll say at the end of the 2.5 hours, you know, the teachers are so ecstatic that they've got 5 hours of or 5 weeks of plans already there, you know. So this is just part of the planning that teachers would go through in this. And here I'm just going to show you, you just see another slide here, and you'll see the same thing. The arrow there points to, you know, the focus. You know, it just acts kind of as a reminder of the element that the participants are working on at that time. You'll see the guided questions over to the left for the area that they're working on. And of course, the timer again to keep time and keep everybody on track so that we move in the right direction and end in 2.5 hours to have a completed project.
And one of my favorite things about those, our planning guide, are the GIFs, whichever one you want to use, just because it adds a little fun and flair to something that can seem a little monotonous. Here is an example of a completed learning map. As you can see, this teacher really made the project her own. She used fun color pens, she used images and sketch notes to really make her project plan a little more lively. She also embraced the idea of it being a truly living document. If you look at her calendars to the right, you can see that she's marked things out and moved things around in different colors. The calendar is also where we build in that critique, reflection, and revision opportunities that will take place during the project. The school has also added a personal touch by using their own school hashtag for the title. That was the hashtag exceptional learning map. We have another school there's hashtag good as gold learning map. So they're taking that learning map that we are utilizing as a district and adding that own little personal touch to make it feel a little more unique to their school.
And we're running out of time. And I was sitting here reading the chats, and thank you, Miss Nestor. She's been answering those chats as we've been doing this. But some perspectives from the principal's point of view. I will say, once again, going back to, you know, it's really hard, especially when you're a rural school that's not, you know, we don't have that many teachers. Most of the schools in our district, you know, we don't have a mega school. So having 4 teachers at one time out of class having a planning day will kind of send chills down your spine for a moment. But, you know, at the end of the day, they walk away with 5 weeks or so worth of plans done, you know, and the teacher gets real excited about it. You know, you can see a higher level of student engagement there. One thing I will say, you know, a lot of teachers are very linear people. You know, all of us in education, we like to have a start date and an end date. And I think what this plan does is really working with the calendar. You know, it forces us to have some flexibility in there. Of course, there's certain benchmarks throughout that we want students to be on task or on the same point at, but it's not one of the things like everybody has to be here every day, you know, or we're going to start at the same spot every day, because again, it's student guided. There's a lot of, I guess, flexibility in how students learn because they're leaders of their own learning. Ms. Nestor, I think we're supposed to be back pretty soon. I'm gonna let Ms. Nestor sort of wrap up. And but man, this has flown by. I really enjoyed talking. I have several more things I could have said, but I appreciate you all listening. If you have any questions, I know several of you have reached out and asked. Yes, there is a copy of that. Ms. Nestor has shared that or is sharing that. Right? Yes. Okay.
I have put a link to a copy of our Leading the Way learning map in the chat. I have also put the link back to the main presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you think of any questions, please feel free to reach out to us via email. Mine is emily.nestor, Nestor, at tcboe.org. And Dr. Gallagher's is tgallagher at tcboe.org. Thank you again for joining us. Those links are in the chat. So if you will just go ahead and click the link that's going to take you back to that main presentation, we will wrap up our sharing today. Thank you so much.